From the land of 10,000 lakes and just as many heartaches, welcome to the 301 Show. We're here to celebrate, commiserate, and maybe, just maybe, see a Minnesota team win it all. Whether you're dreaming of a Vikings Super Bowl, reliving the glory days of the Twins, or still recovering from the Timberwolves roller coaster, we've got you covered. This is the 301 Show, where the North remembers and the passion never fades.
All right, yes, let's get into the 301 show. Took a bit of a hiatus there, but we are back to every Wednesday being the episode release day, and we got a bit to talk about here. Obviously the Vikings lost to the Rams since the last time we spoke. The Twins actually finally signed somebody here in this offseason, and then the Wolves and Wild have continued their seasons. So let's get into this and we will get underway. All right, moving on to the Target Field Talkers. Within the last week, the Twins have signed Danny Columb, and they signed him to a 1-year, $3 million deal. The $3 million is fully guaranteed. If you do recognize that name, he did spend 3 years with the Twins in 2021 and 22. Last season, he did a pretty good year with the Baltimore Orioles. He pitched in 33 games, went 1-0, had a 2.12 ERA, pitched 29 and 2/3 innings, and had 32 strikeouts to only 5 walks, and then had a 0.67 whip in those 29 and 2/3 innings. He gave up 15 hits, 3 of those being home runs. Over the course of his entire career, he's pitched in 288 games. He has a 15-9 record, a 3.52 ERA, 273 and 2/3 innings pitched, 269 strikeouts to 97 walks. He has a 1.21 whip, is given up 233 hits, 28 of which are home runs. So the Twins go out and just bolster what I think is the best part of this team, assuming everybody is healthy. Maybe not the best, but the most consistent part of this team in the bullpen. Obviously, you've got superstars like Carlos Correa. You've got budding superstars like Royce Lewis and Brooks Lee, but the bullpen is just very consistent. They have the superstar in Griffin Jax, and if Johan Duran can get back to what he was a couple years ago, I think he's a very good closer too. One of the more underrated closers in this league if he can pitch up to what we know he can be. Last year, a bit of a down year for the closer for the Twins, but adding another guy who has spent a couple years with you in the past under Rocco Baldelli and pitched so well last year that I believe it just only improves this already solid bullpen core. So I look out for the bullpen this year to be even better than it was last year. Because I think it's going to be. I think they're going to have. More consistency out of the guys they need to have. The guys they need to be consistent in the bullpen. Now let's move on to the predictions here. We had 2 come off the board from the last month. One should have come off the board earlier. But the first one is Jurickson Profar will be signed by the Twins this offseason. They did not. He signed with the Atlanta Braves. And then the other one is that Max Kepler will not be a Twin on opening day, and he will not be. We'll come revisit this one if somehow the Twins go out and trade for him. He signed a deal with the Phillies, so I am counting that as correct right now. Again, we will adjust if he is somehow on the Twins opening day roster come late March. That brings Target Field Talkers up to 1 out of 3 predictions that have come off the board for a 33%. And we've got 3 more coming on the board this episode. So, first one is that the Twins will win the AL Central in 2025. I think Cleveland overachieved by a little bit last year. I think the Twins, I think the top 4 teams at least in the AL Central, between Kansas City, Minnesota, Cleveland, and Detroit, are all pretty close to each other right now. Now, obviously, we said that the Twins look like the best team in the Central last offseason, and they ended up finishing only ahead of the Chicago White Sox, who are historically bad. So this is by no means a slam dunk, and they could even be the second wild card behind either Baltimore or New York, and in August, and not make the playoffs. So that is definitely not a fully guarantee. So that is my first prediction, is that the Twins will win the AL Central in 2025. Second prediction, Corey Kosky is being inducted into the Twins Hall of Fame. I'm predicting that his Hall of Fame speech will mention Joe Mauer, Justin Morneau, Ron Gardenhire, and Tom Kelly by name and or nickname. So he might say TK for Tom Kelly instead of saying his full name. But if he mentions all of them by name, this hits. Third and final prediction of this Target Field Talkers episode is that Bailey Ober will pitch a complete game and will give up 2 or less runs in that complete game. I wanted to say complete game shutout, but I'm going to give myself a little bit of wiggle room here and say that he will give up 2 or less runs in a complete game this season. All right, so now let's get into the Wolves' Den here. The January for the Wolves, they went 10-6 in January. They had a couple of key wins here. They blew out the Denver Nuggets at home, 133-104. Ant put up 34 points. It was 14 of 23 with 9 assists. That was back on the 25th. Jokic only put up 20 points on 9 of 13 shooting with 3 rebounds and 11 assists. That game, they just looked like the offensive and defensive Wolves of last year, where they were, holding teams to around 100 points while also putting up 130. And that was absolutely massive to gain a game in the standings against a good Western Conference team in the Nuggets with one of the best players in the world currently. And then a couple days before that, they had beaten the Dallas Mavericks 115-114. The Mavericks almost came back and won that game. Jaden McDaniels had a career-high 27 points on 10 of 18 shooting to go along with 8 rebounds, 4 steals, and 3 blocks. This game was also the game that Luka was not playing in, and Kyrie went off. Obviously, Luka not playing in any Mavericks games for the foreseeable future, as he is a member of the Los Angeles Lakers now. But also, this game was the game that had I think it was a 3.5 point. It was Wolves minus 3.5 in this game, and Kyrie ended up hitting a half-court three-pointer at the end of the game to make it a 1-point game after it was a 4-point game. So he hit a buzzer beater that I'm sure ruined a lot of people's betting that night. But I want to bring up that game because of Jaden McDaniels and how good he looked. Now, I will say this Jaden McDaniels is one of those guys that is brought up in the cat trade as a reason for the cat trade. You would not be able to keep Jaden Daniels, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, and Naz Reid if you keep Cat. Like, Cat is making, I think, $49 million this year, and it's going to be 55 next year and then 60 the year after that. The Wolves just would not have been able to keep, for sure, Na and Naz Reid, because they are both free agents this offseason, and they are probably both going to want raises. And I would rather keep those two guys because at least those two guys can play defense a little bit. And I also don't think that Julius Randle is the reason for the trade. Like, Julius Randle was not the main piece to get back in this trade. The other two pieces were the Dante DiVincenzo and the Detroit first round pick. And Detroit looks like a good team this year. Like, they are battling for a play-in spot right now, and they are doing everything they can to make sure the Wolves get that pick, because it is top 13 protected. So if you can get a pick that is in the teens, in the mid-teens, and from everything I have seen, this draft class is a deep draft class. So if you can get a pick, because they don't have a first-round pick this year. It was one of the picks given up in the Rudy Gobert trade. And if you can get a pick back for that, that is fantastic. Plus, Dante DiVincenzo is closer to being on this championship window with how old he is than Cat was. Cat was 30, almost 30, I should say. And like this championship window is being built around the 23-year-old Anthony Edwards. So if Dante DiVincenzo gets you closer to that window, and you can just be a younger team overall, that is fantastic. And I think they did that. Like, I think they were able to get closer to what Ant is gonna be. And so I do still, obviously there's some people that aren't gonna like it, and there's some people that are not great, that aren't great with this trade, and I can understand that, but I think overall this trade benefited the Timberwolves. Yeah. All right, now let's get into the team rankings here. They have played 50 games. They've got 32 remaining. They are 27-23, 4 games above 500. They are 3rd in the division and 7th in the Western Conference. They would be playing a play-in game right now if the season were to end today against the Phoenix Suns. The points for per game, they are 111.0, which is 21st. Field goal percentage, they are 46.4, which is 16th. 3-point percentage, they are tied for second at 38.5. Free throw percentage, they are 78.6, which is 14th. Rebounds per game, they are 43.7, which is 21st. Blocks per game, they are 4.9, which is tied for 17th. Turnover differential per game is plus 0.6, which is tied for 13th. So they are right in the middle of the pack there. Almost even on the turnovers. Points against per game, they are 108.0, which is fourth. Field goal percentage against is 45.6%, which is seventh lowest. 3-point field goal percentage is 34.9, which is fifth lowest in the NBA. Rebounds against per game is 42.8, which is eighth lowest in the entire league. And then blocks against per game is 4.7, which is 11th lowest in the entire NBA. So this team is very much built on defense, and I do think one thing that they could do here is the trade deadline is coming up in a few days. They could move Julius Randle, and that would be a massive move for them to make, and they could go get some sort of offensive help for 1 year. And because like I said, them keeping Na and Naz Reid, I think would make them not want to trade for somebody long term, and I think they want to also try to get under the luxury tax threshold so they can make more moves. But yeah, the lookout for Julius Randle to be traded in the next couple days here before the trade deadline passes. Other news coming out of Target Center this year, right now, is according to 5 Eyewitness News' Darren Doogie Wolfson. He said that an arbitration decision should be made by the end of next week, as they had 30 days to make a decision after the hearing. So that deadline is coming up next week. So we should be getting a decision on who is going to own this team. And I don't know about you, but I am very much hoping it is Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez. As for the Wolves Den predictions, we had 2 come off the board. And first one is that Ant will drop 40-plus points by when this episode should have come out, and that one was correct. He dropped 50 points in a game. And that Naz Reid will drop 30-plus points by the All-Star break, and he did in the last game. So he dropped 30-plus points, so that one is also correct. That brings the Wolves Den up to 7 out of 25 correct predictions for 28%. We got 3 more predictions coming off the board, or going on the board here now. The first one is that Julius Randle will not be on the Wolves roster opening night next season. So Julius Randle will not be a Timberwolf on opening night of the 25-26 season. Second prediction is that Ant will win Dunk of the Year again this year, whether it be one that he's already had or a different one that is coming. And then the final prediction is that the Wolves will finish in the top 5 for fewest points against per game. They will finish with in the, I guess, technically bottom 5 or top 5. So they will have the fewest points against per game be in that top 5 for that. That'll do it for this week's Wolves Den. All right, now let's get into the Nordic Report. Since we last talked, the Vikings obviously lost to the Rams in Arizona. And I'm sure you've seen all of the talking points from this game. Sam Darnold held onto the ball too long. The offensive line was giving up too much pressure. The defense, I don't think the defense looked terrible. Like, there's definitely things to improve on the defense, but I thought if you're going to blame someone on this team, blame the offense. It was absolutely brutal on offense. Obviously, then TJ Hawkinson goes out and scores his first touchdown of the year. And they, still lose. They Yeah, can't get past the wild card weekend. And they are watching from Cancun. When Dan Campbell told the KOC, "I'll see you in 2 weeks," I don't think they meant it was. I don't think they thought it was going to be at the resort in Cancun. But that is what it will be. So for this episode, we can do these throughout the entire off season here, but I do have a Vikings mock draft, and I want to give you. I took control of the Vikings, and I want to give you just the players that I ended up picking. This also is assuming the Vikings would get pick number 97 as a comp pick for losing Kirk and Daniil Hunter last year. So as of right now, the Vikings have pick number 24, 140, and 161. So it's a first and 2/5 right now. And then they should be picking up a third round pick that is around pick 97. So, yeah, that I just assume they had pick number 97 and will be getting something around there. Obviously, we'll know more as time goes on and we get all of these comp picks announced. They're not going to do that before the Super Bowl. So, yeah. So the first thing I did was I got a trade offer from the Chargers to move back 2 spots and also picked up an extra third round pick. And so maybe it was the Bills. I can't remember. It was trading back 2 spots to pick number 26 and picking up pick number 90. So was able to move back 2 spots, and Kenneth Grant, the D tackle from Michigan, was still on the board. So took Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. Again, he is a run-stopping D tackle, and that is one of the major things the Vikings need right now. I'd say the big 3 categories that they need is interior defensive line, interior offensive line, and then secondary help. And they getting Mekhi Blackman back would definitely help the cornerbacks. And then we will see what happens with Harrison Smith. I was just assuming that Harrison Smith is retiring this offseason. So then at pick 90, I drafted Jalen Reed, the safety out of Penn State. And then at 97, Davison Igbinosun, the cornerback out of Ohio State. So going very much Big Ten heavy here, with the first 3 picks on the days 1 and 2 for the Vikings. And then at pick 140, I picked up Luke Kandra, the offensive guard from Cincinnati. And at 161, this is my favorite pick, again, mostly because I am a University of Texas fan. But at 161, I picked up center Jake Majors out of the University of Texas. I think that kid, he was a 4-year player at Texas, started for most of them, and he contributed a lot to that offensive line down in Austin and was absolutely fantastic. And I think if you want Garrett Bradbury back one more year, if you have Jake Majors, he would be able to sit a year behind, and you're using a 5th round pick on it, like you're taking a flyer on him basically, and could you have traded back in those 5th rounds? Absolutely, but I didn't want to do the only picks I want to trade back when I do these, unless you guys have suggestions, the only pick I want to trade back is the 1st round pick. So that is my mock draft. They go D tackle, safety, cornerback, offensive guard, center. And Again, I was really just trying to hit all the positions of need. I could very much see them drafting a running back too if they don't bring back Aaron Jones. And that can be its own discussion, and I'm sure we'll get into a lot more of this. I don't want to have all the discussions here just on one day. So leave what position group you want to see me discuss, what I think they should do, down in the comment section. So going for the first position group here, I'm going to do a discussion on the quarterback one. So first and foremost, I don't think they're bringing back Sam Darnold. I do think Sam Darnold will be a starting quarterback on week 1. And I think there are 2 very, very likely scenarios, and then one scenario that is reliant on something else happening. So it's a lot less likely, but would be a great fit if that thing I think would actually be the best fit. So those 3 teams I think are the Raiders and the Steelers are the 2 most likely options as of right now. And then the third option, well, with the Raiders, I could see him going there. I could also see Russell Wilson leaving the Steelers to go team back up with Pete Carroll in Las Vegas. And that would leave the vacancy in Pittsburgh, so I could see Sam Darnold getting a contract there. And then the team that would need something to happen would be the Los Angeles Rams. And that one thing that would need to happen is obviously Matt Stafford would need to retire. But again, I think the Rams would actually be the best fit for Stafford because, KOC came from that Sean McVay coaching tree. In LA, it's almost exactly the same system. So I think he would pan out great in SoCal. If I was Sam Darnold, that's where I would look first. Again, it all relies on Matt Stafford if he wants to come back or not. And then the other 2, I don't know. If you want stability, go with the Steelers. If you want probably more money, go with the Raiders. The 2 options I have here for week 1 starter for the Vikings, and I do want to say I trust Kevin O'Connell, and whoever he says is ready to go week 1, I think will be. I trust him. He was able to turn Sam Darnold into a $30 million a year quarterback. Because I think that's what Sam Darnold's going to get is north of $30 million a year. So I do trust, and he was also, last year able to win 3 games with Nick Mullins, Jaron Hall, and Josh Dobbs as his 3 starting quarterbacks after Kirk went down. He was able to get Kirk to a 13-4 regular season a couple years ago in his first year with the Vikings. So again, KOC, I still trust him as the identifier of quarterback talent. So my 2 options here of the 2 guys I want to see at least battle for the week 1 spot is Daniel Jones and J.J. McCarthy. I think those 2 guys would be absolutely fantastic to have. Obviously you've got J.J. McCarthy as your potential future number 1 quarterback. But the problem with him is he has not played a snap in the NFL after the preseason week 1 of this past season. And he hasn't taken snaps since then because he had the knee surgery. The benefit for him is he is on a rookie level deal. You are able to build a fantastic team around him. And that is also why I think they need to beef up the offensive line, especially the interior. You don't want the not a rookie, but first year in the league, first healthy year in the league quarterback to be, especially a guy that's coming off of a knee injury. You don't want him to be running for his life every single play. But But again, I think they have money to spend, and I think they are going to be able to go out and in free agency sign an offensive guard or center. I think it's probably going to be a guard because you still have Bradbury under contract. The other quarterback, obviously Daniel Jones, he was on the practice squad last year. I think he would be a great guy to basically come in and be the Sam Darnold of this year and sign for a cheap deal. And even if he is the backup quarterback, I think, signing him to a $10 to $12 million deal for 1 year, I'm not that uncomfortable of putting him on the bench and having him hold a clipboard for that amount of money. So I think those two guys are the best two options for the Vikings Week 1 starters. As for the Nordic Report, we had a bunch come off the board this week. We had 6 come off the board. Start with the incorrect here. The first one is Sam Darnold will win Comeback Player of the Year and receive first place votes for MVP. So again, we can relook at this one again, but I really don't see him receiving first place votes for MVP. I do think he's probably the favorite for Comeback Player of the Year, but he is not receiving first place votes for MVP, especially when we have 5 nominees at this point. I don't think they're giving more than 5 guys first place votes. Next incorrect one was that Andrew Van Ginkel will get another pick 6 in the regular season or the postseason. And then 3 incorrect predictions from the Rams game was that the Vikings will beat the Rams. They did not. Sam Darnold will throw for more touchdowns than Matthew Stafford. He did not. And then Harrison Smith will pick off Matthew Stafford. He did not. But a little bit of a redemption here. I said that the Vikings will finish with a top 5 record in the NFL. I did predict that just a few weeks ago, so that wasn't that big of a shock. But that did bring my predictions to 11 out of 35 for a 31%. As for the 3 predictions going on the board this week, to back up my mock draft, I said the first pick of the 2025, the Vikings' first pick, whenever that first pick will come, the Vikings' first pick in the 2025 draft will be an interior lineman. So on either side of the ball, it will be either a D tackle or a guard, offensive guard, or a center. So it will be just on the interior of of either line. Second prediction going on the board is that Byron Murphy will re-sign with the Vikings. I think better of the 2 free agents in the secondary is coming back to the Vikings. And then this is more of I just love this guy, and I'm more trying to speak this into existence. Jake Majors will be selected by the Vikings in the 2025 NFL Draft. So Jake Majors will be selected by the Vikings in the 2025 NFL Draft in April. All right, now moving on to the Rinkside Rundown. The Wild went 8-7 in January. They had a couple of big games. On the 9th, they played the Colorado Avalanche at home. They lost 6-1. There were 6 different goal scorers for the Avalanche, Rantanen, and then Rantanen, McKinnon, Drouin, O'Connor, and Manson all had multi-point games. Gustafsson stopped 21 of 27 shots. Mackenzie Blackwood stopped 24 of 25. This was also the game that Marc-Andre Fleury was sick, and it was Gus's game the entire time. And they just did not look that good in that game. But they were able to redeem themselves by, on MLK Day, in the afternoon, they played the Avalanche and won 3-1. McKinnon scored for the Avalanche, and then Middleton, Trennan, and Faber all scored for the Wild. And Liam Ogren also put up 2 assists in that game. Marc-Andre Fleury stopped 26 of 27 shots, so he has turning his. He's looked a little bit shaky at the beginning of the year, but then has been absolutely on fire. And I think just getting more consistent playing time definitely helps that. Then 10 days later, on the 30th, Marc-Andre Fleury was playing his last game in his hometown of Montreal. The Wild won 4-0 in that game. And that was a couple things about, well, let me just say they had 4 different goal scorers, Freddie Gaudreau, Liam Ogren, Marco Rossi, and Ben Shore. Liam Ogren's first goal of the season, second of his career. But Marc-Andre Fleury stopped 19 of 19. Again, his last game in Montreal, which he grew up just outside of. Canadians were his hometown team. It was his 76th shutout of his career. He's also the first goalie in NHL history to record a shutout as a teenager and at 40-plus years old. So he recorded a shutout on 1/30/24, and he recorded a shutout on 10/30/03 at 19 years old. This is also the most seasons in a career for a goaltender with at least 1 shutout. He passed Marty Brodeur for that, and someone, I can't remember who else it was, but it was Marty Brodeur had 20, and now this is number 21 for the Flower. So that was absolutely amazing to see. And again, this is his last season in the NHL, so please go to the X, go to a game if you can, just to see Marc-Andre Fleury one last time. As for the team rankings, the Wild are 31-19-4 with 66 points. They are 3rd in the Central Division, just barely hanging on, as the Avalanche are 2 points behind them right now. The Wild are 5th in the Western Conference. They are 17th in goals for per game with 2.83. They also have 2.83 goals against per game, which is 11th fewest in the NHL. They have 4 shutouts on the year, which is tied for 7th. The power play is at 18.8%, which is 24th. The penalty kill is 70.8%, which is 30th. Which, again, we've talked about this multiple times. These special teams need to be better. They should be studied this year for how the Wild are this high in the standings, but have special teams that are this bad. Like, this is absolutely insane and should not be happening at this point. Now, again, like I've said before, a big part of that is because they are 47.2% from the face-off dot. So the centers absolutely need to get better. And because you can't have guys that are out there and you not winning faceoffs, because then you're not controlling the puck. And if you're not controlling the puck, it is very hard to kill off a penalty, and it's very hard to set up a power play and score. Like it's a lot harder to do that than if you just win the faceoff and you're able to get the puck out of the zone or keep it in the zone, whichever one you're trying to do. And yes, I get these guys are professionals, but they're also going up against professionals. And they need to be better at the faceoffs. Shots per game, they're sitting at 27.7, which is 21st in the NHL. Shots against is 29.9, which is 27th in the NHL. So if you look at all of these, there's not really a reason they should be this high in the standings right now. Like, all of these underlying numbers don't look the greatest, but they're somehow putting together wins, and that's what matters too. As for Gus Bus, he is 20-11-3 on the year. He's got a .913 save percentage, which is tied for ninth. His goals against average is 2.66, which is tied for 21st in the NHL. Couple of big news items here. Kirill Kaprizov is going to have surgery to repair a lower body injury. He has been placed on LTIR and has to miss at least 10 games. This is retroactive to January 27th. You are able to do that in the NHL if you go on long-term, or if you go on the IR. They're able to date it back to the last game you missed, which, if he has to be out for at least 10 games, March 2nd is his earliest return date. Michael Russo said that there is a 6-week timeline is the most likely scenario, so it's most likely going to be longer than the 10 games. But he should be back for a playoff push and a playoff run at the end of the season. Kirill also said that he was playing at 60%, and which again, Kirill at 60% is still probably better than most players in this league, but we'd rather have him at not playing and then have him come back at 100% when he can. Because if you're at 60%, you're most likely just going to get injured again and then be at 0%. So rather have you at 0% and then 100% rather than 60% and then 0%. Then other big news is Ryan Hartman. He got suspended for 10 games. He was penalized in the game against the Ottawa Senators for intent to injure Tim Stützle, and it looked like he was trying to recreate his favorite WWE segment, and he just threw the face of Tim Stützle right into the ice, and he didn't even try to hide it as a hockey type play. Like, he just straight face into ice, and he did get a 10-game suspension for it. I don't know if he'll try to appeal it or not. It doesn't sound like he will. But he now has been fined. He's been fined 7 times, and now has been suspended 5 times for 17 games in his entire career. So, while 10 games might seem harsh, again, it's because he is a repeat offender. He has done this a lot, and he didn't, at the beginning of the year, he was good on this, but obviously that doesn't matter because he still got suspended. Now, again, do not be surprised if he is not back. Like, they somehow get rid of him this offseason, either by cutting him or by trying to trade him, which, again, I don't know if any team would take him at this point, but it would not surprise me if the Wild just cut ties with Ryan Hartman this offseason. Let's move on to the Minnesota Frost. They're doing well this year. In January, they went 2-3-1-3 for 13 points. They do the 2 points for an overtime loss, 3 points for a regulation loss, 1 point, or 3 points for a regulation win, 2 points for an overtime or shootout win, 1 point for an overtime or shootout loss, and then 0 points for a regulation win. So overall, the Frost are 5-4-2-4 for 25 points. They sit 1 point behind Montreal for second in the PWHL. And goals for per game, they're sitting at 3 even. They are first in the PWHL, the only team at or above 3 goals per game. Goals against per game, they are at 2.73, so very offensive team. They are 5th in the PWHL, so they are very much relying on their goal scoring this season, which we've got some good news about that in just a second here. Power play percent, they are at 20.9%, 9 for 43, which is second in the PWHL. Penalty kill, They got the same problem as the Wild. They are 70.6%. Have killed off 24 of 30 on the year, which is dead last in the PWHL. So maybe the Wild should take some notes from the Frost on how to actually score a power play goal, get that percentage back up. But the good news for the Frost offensively is that Grace Zumwinkle is returning to practice. She was out due to a back injury, but she is returning to practice and should be back in the lineup pretty soon here. And as a reminder, too, the Frost are off until February 11th due to the international break and the rivalry series between the U.S. and Canada. So their next game is February 11th. As for predictions, had quite a few come off the board here for the Rinkside Rundown. We had 4. Said the Wild will go 3-0 against the Av Sharks and Knights. They went 1-2. I said Marco Rossi will score 2+ goals and or 3+ assists by when this episode should have come out. That was incorrect. And I said Kirill Kaprizov will and or Marco Rossi will have a hat trick before the new year. They both had games with 2 goals, but neither one of them scored 3, so those 3 were all incorrect. Then I also said Marc-Andre Fleury will record a shutout this season, which that was correct. That brings the Rinkside Rundown to 9 of 28 for 32%. That will also bring total predictions to 28 correct out of 91 total predicted. That is 31%. So yeah, 31% so far on the year for the total predictions. All right, thank you for watching episode 15 of the 301 show. Should be back and more consistent here with the upload schedule. Again, leave down any questions, comments, concerns in the comment section. Also, let me know who you think the Vikings will start week 1 at the quarterback position. Let me know too if you want me to go over any other positional needs or what I think they should do at different positions this offseason. Thank you for joining us here again at the 301 show, and we will see you next time.